It's Peter Kerr from Daydream Nation, and look who's back to the channel. I've got Joe B. How's it going, Joe?
It's going as well as it can be, but it's great to have. It's always great to be on the show. So thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure.
Yeah,
We're going to talk about Ozzy Osbourne, but we're also going to talk about Black Sabbath because in the early 80s, there were two live albums that were released within a month of each other. And I don't know, by design or accidental, they were competitive. Were in competition with each other. So we've got
yeah.
Ozzy Osbourne, Speak of the Devil. I'm not a fan of that album cover. We'll talk about that. And then Black Sabbath with Live Evil. I love this album
Right.
cover.
Yeah.
So as fronted by Ronnie James Dio. We're going to talk about both albums broadly. Do we like them? What we think of the sounds, what we think of the interpretation of the songs, the performances, the production, the whole shebang. So I'll throw it over to you, Joe. You lead which album you'd like to talk about, and we can go from there. Would you like to start off with
I
Speak of the
would,
Devil?
but I do want to preface this by saying both these albums broke up both bands, or the reiteration of these bands. So Randy Rhoads passes away, but he was having conflict with Ozzy, and a lot of it was over this album. They had contractual obligations with Jet Records for two more albums. So they decided to do a double album to fulfill that obligation with live Sabbath songs. And the band did not want to do it. And so Randy Rhoads gets in the airplane crash. They get Brad Gillis to fill in, but it becomes a mess afterwards. Brad Gillis goes off to Night Ranger, and Rudy Sarzo's pissed off, and he goes back. He goes over to Quiet Riot. So Ozzy basically loses his band there, and of course, Ozzy being Ozzy, he comes back, even bigger. But it's really interesting. And then we'll talk about Live Evil, how that iteration of Black Sabbath fell apart for this live album. But there was definitely competition. Now, when Speak of the Devil came out, I thought it was bizarre. I had no idea what was going on. I enjoyed it. I wanted to hear these songs. I wasn't really a fan of the way Brad Gillis was playing them, but now in hindsight, Brad really he had to learn these songs quickly, and he was really thrown into the band, to play. And it was like, you're filling Randy Rhoads' spot, and there you go. And it was a chore to record this. They did two shows at the Ritz in New York, and there's a couple songs they had to just do at sound check because Ozzy was out of it. When you listen to the album, you can hear they did back in the day. Max Norman did some type of vocal smoothing because when Ozzy talks and then all of a sudden he sings in perfect pitch, it's really strange. But you know what? I can't. How can you not like it? I mean, it's kick-ass Black Sabbath songs. So
all the way
yeah,
through, all the way through.
yeah,
No
I know,
originals.
but I just found it to be so weird when it came out. And before this, there was a whole Black Sabbath live at last that was released that was unauthorized by the band. So you have this battle between Sharon and her father. Her father's managing Sabbath, and she's managing Ozzy, and that comes into play as well. So there's this whole competition. And then Ozzy has a midget that comes on stage with him, and he calls him Ronnie during the show. I guess you say little person nowadays. But yeah, that's my overview. So you want to dig into the album? Let's do it.
Yeah, look, just a little bit of a preface. Before Brad Gillis, he actually brought in Bernie
Ernie
Torme
Torme. Yeah.
from Gillen, and literally, Bernie was learning the lines on the plane ride across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
And I think he did about 12 dates. And at the end of it, he said, look, I'm not the right fit for this band. And when I did an interview with John McCoy, the bass player with Gillan, who was super close with Bernie said, look, it was weird. People were shouting out to me and shouting out the name Randy. And I just didn't feel right. And I've got to give a big tick and a kudo. That's got balls to
it is.
fill the shoes of Randy Rhoads and in such a short space of time learn a whole set, literally on a plane flight.
The death of Randy Rhoads, you just had Ozzy Osbourne pass away, and it really didn't. He lived a full life, and he brought me a lot of joy. And he was he's in his 70s. But when Randy Rhoads passed away, died in an airplane crash, that really hit me hard. And he was quite possibly the greatest guitarist of all time in my estimation, even better than Eddie. And then, to be thrown in there, you think back to John Bonham dying and Zeppelin cancels everything. Bon Scott dies and AC/DC puts everything on hold, and then, gets a new singer, and there's a little bit of a hiatus there. They just plowed through and picked up Bernie Tormé and then found Brad Gillis and plowed through and kept on touring. I guess they were that desperate for money to keep on doing it. And
I think it's insurance. Yeah. I don't think I have a different view. I think if they cancelled, I think there would have been a financial penalty. So therefore, they were in a corner, and that probably affected. I mean, it would have affected Ozzy psychologically, because there was a long period, especially in that first half of the 80s, where he was going through alcohol and drug abuse, and I think it's all residual from that, the loss of Randy Rhoads. And I don't think he probably had time to grieve, because if you look at the tour itinerary, it's like it's like there's a break with the event.
But they weren't getting along.
Then he's back into it.
They weren't getting along, and Randy was telling him he's leaving after his contractual obligation. So it's interesting if he would have lived, what would have happened. But
look, that is true. Bands fight, brothers fight, and they make up. Who knows? It's all very it's all speculation. Look, I've got to admit, I only got into this album later in life, because the thing that really I avoided the album because of the cover, because I just thought it looked ridiculous. You've got the jelly, and I just thought it was jokey.
Right. And I think that's a wig, because I think maybe right around that time he shaved his head too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But the playing on this album they're on fire. Brad is playing a very metallic version of Sabbath, and I can tell you a lot of the traditional Sabbath fans would have gone and listened to this and gone, oh, this is not what I want to hear. It does take a little bit to get used to, because some of the time signatures are sped up, they're slowed down, they've changed around. It's a Brad Gillis interpretation of Black Sabbath.
It is, but I believe, in fact, if you hear the interviews with Max Norman, a lot of that is because Ozzy just wasn't there. I mean, they didn't even know if he's going to show up to the show, and some of this stuff had to be recorded at sound checks, and they had to work on his voice in the studio. Well, he had a lyric sheet. This was before teleprompters. He had to have a paper with the lyrics in front of him to read off of. So, when it came out, I'm like, I like it. It's Black Sabbath. I don't know if I like how Brad Gillis is playing this, but I found it just to be incredibly strange. So, because I didn't really know the backstory.
Yeah, it is certainly odd. One thing's for sure, I think it's all tape. It's all overdubbed. Definitely, all of the Ozzy.
Oh, his voice.
I've actually heard the original vocals from these shows, and Ozzy sounds terrible.
Yeah,
he's pitchy. He's all over the shop. So one thing's for sure, there's been a lot of studio trickery in respect to this. But getting to the performances of the musicians, Brad's on fire. Rudy, his bass bubbles along. He's really
Rudy's
good.
great, and Tommy Aldridge is great. Yeah.
I reckon those two are really, they were one of the best bottom ends in Sabbath, not in Sabbath history, in Ozzy solo history. I like, they both
And this
are in
is the
lockstep.
only album. This is the only album that they recorded together.
No, my friend.
Yeah.
They actually recorded Slip of the Tongue, White Snake.
That's right. But with Ozzy, so they're credited on Diary of the Madman, but as you know, they didn't play on Diary. Yeah. I know.
Don't even go there, mate. Oh.
I know. The set list is just, he goes through basically the full Black Sabbath catalog. He opens up with Sympathy of the Universe, which is just a friggin' awesome tune, and goes into Snowblind. It just, it's just meat and potatoes Black Sabbath. I don't know. How do you feel about it? Like I said, when it came out, I'm like, yeah, I like this, but it's really weird. Like, why are they doing this?
Yeah, there's a little bit of love and hate. I
like
Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, where it goes to the chunky bit with the down-tuned, gnarly Iommi bit in the song. Brad takes it in a different direction, and that sort of irritates me because
I believe that's one of the. I thought there were two songs that I have to look it up. There were two songs that weren't performed live, and they just did it in sound check. And Sabbath Bloody Sabbath might have been one of them.
Yeah, but there are some where he takes a direction. He makes an artistic choice that I don't agree with, because it's sort of the whole reason I like the song Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is the bit where Iommi gets the down-tuned riff, and that's the hero of the song. And Brad Gillis takes that whole in a different direction. So to me, that I can't enjoy that song as much.
I'm glad you brought that up, because in today's age where guys fill in and they play everything perfectly to the album. Back in the 80s, you get a new guitar player and he would play his own riff. Like like Vinnie Vincent, when he joined Kiss, he just went off and did his own. He didn't copy Ace Frehley's riff. Bruce Kulick didn't copy Ace Frehley's riff. Brad Gillis is not going to copy Tony Iommi. He just learned these songs, in a week. So it's really interesting, because that's what you found out when guys would step in. The guitar solo would sound nothing like the album when a new guitar player came in.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think some of it works, some of it doesn't work as well. Overall, I do like the album, but it is very strange. Indeed.
Yeah.
Never Say Die, I like that. I'm a big fan of that album. I think over time, there is still this narrative with a lot of those big YouTube channels that Never Say Die sucks.
It doesn't suck.
It is. No. I think it's a very underrated album.
I agree.
And folks, how many songs did they play off Never Say Die at the final concert? Just saying it there. But
you're right.
Never Say Die is a highlight. NIB, I like that. The Wizard, Symptom of the Universe, strong tracks.
Yeah, it's a kick-ass opener. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's fun. In hindsight, it's a really fun album. When it was released, it blew my mind, and I didn't know where they were going. But you look now, and it was a contractual obligation. I believe Sharon was a big force between us, but he made his ex-bandmates a ton of money on writing credits, because the whole band wrote all these songs. So I think they probably made more money off of this than they did off of Live Evil. They probably made more money off of this. Iommi, Ward, and Geezer probably made more money off of this than a lot of albums, because it went platinum, or maybe even double platinum, and all the songwriting credits are to all four original members of Black Sabbath.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
All right. Well, why don't we go over to the Dio camp and Camp Black Sabbath with Live Evil? So
Geezer Butler is on record as saying there definitely was a competition. Obviously, there was because Ozzy was calling the little person Ronnie. So, and I also heard that they were blocking each other out for venues. So if Sabbath was playing Madison Square Garden, they would try to make sure that Ozzy couldn't play Madison Square Garden or vice versa. And it was definitely a battle between Sharon and her father. So there was competition to get this album out. And also that unauthorized live album that came out did not sit well with Tony and Geezer. So they wanted to get something out that really represented the current band. And I love Dio era Sabbath. In fact, I love the Mob Rules even more than Heaven and Hell, and I love Heaven and Hell. Um, I so I like the song choices on this. The album is great. They do old Black Sabbath, but there was definitely a competition here. But this broke up the band as well. After Speak of the Devil, Rudy Sarzo was gone. Brad Gillis was gone. After this album, Ronnie James Dio and Vinny Appice leave. And there's fighting in the studio over the mixing, and drugs were involved, of course. So, but as far as an album, I think it's great.
I have a problem with the production. It sounds a bit muted, especially with the crowd noises. You can't basically hear crowd on it. And I've heard the story that Ronnie's doing, knob twiddling on the console at nighttime, and then Tony will come in during the daytime and reverse it. I might have
I think it was the other way around.
Might be the night and day. Yeah.
Yeah. So the original story was that Ronnie and Vinny were coming in and they were workaholics. And according to Ronnie, Tony and Geezer were really still in the cocaine and weren't showing up. Now, that story has softened since the Heaven and Hell reunion, and then they released the anniversary box set of this album. But yeah, there's definitely fighting over the mix of the album.
I think the mix is the problem.
Yeah.
So I got this in the day, and I think the performances are great, but it's the mix. To me, it's like restrained and muted. It doesn't punch out of the speakers like Speak of the Devil, for example.
Agreed.
I prefer the Tony Iommi interpretations of the songs. And plus you get that wonderful Dio era where you have the Heaven and Hell and the Mob Rules. The only thing I don't like is Dio loves doing melodies. And I get a little bit, when they do melodies, it's sort of like shorthand. I like to hear the full songs.
Yes.
So, and over four sides, when you're doing melodies, it kind of sounds a bit disjointed. So there's a melody here, the sign of the Southern Cross, and then you've got Heaven and Hell continued.
Right.
Yeah, it's sort of
I know where you're getting there. I have to agree with you there as well. But I don't know. I'm just throwing back to when it came out. I love this album too. It was interesting because I really liked the Dio era, but I liked the Ozzy era. So, what album do I like better? I don't know. In hindsight, I think at the time I liked the songs on Speak of the Devil better, maybe a little bit because of songs like Symptom of the Universe or Never Say Die. But now looking back at it, the Dio songs are just as good, if not better. So, this competition was interesting. And they both released live albums within a month of each other. But, and I'd like your take on it because I keep on repeating this, it broke up both bands. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, it is. It's sort of like the egos do prevail. I think the breakup of the band was that he was in a bad space, and I don't think it was intentional. I think there were a lot of decision making that was done out of his hands because I think he was just so fucked up because of the death of Randy Rhoads. That kind of broke up the band. Probably had to have a pause. and then getting that whole lineup with Jake E. Lee reinvigorated his career. Bark at the Moon was the best thing for him, and I love that Jake E. Lee era.
Yes.
You know, and
it's interesting.
I might be contrarian. I slightly like it a little bit. It's only I mean, it'd be like this and Randy, that era. I just
Randy's like this
love
but I definitely like Jake better than Zach.
Oh yeah, but I love that Jake E. Lee era.
So I don't know. Have you heard the story? You know, there was a huge the US Festival. Van Halen headlined that they had the Heavy Metal Day, and apparently Ozzy assaulted Rudy Sarzo because Quiet Riot played on that bill too, and Ozzy would not let go that Rudy Sarzo left his band to join Quiet Riot, and he went after him. Then there was a physical altercation. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I love the Dio. I'd prefer this album over Speak of the Devil simply because it's got the Iommi riffage, the sound. It sounds more traditional Black Sabbath, and it's got those wonderful songs from Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules. But it's the production. So I'd love to have the best of both worlds across those two albums. Better production, more crowd interaction sounds, a little bit more sparkly. And
I find them. Yeah. I would have to say this is a legitimate tie for me. I love both albums. They both came out at the right time. I like there was a competition there, but I also like the fact that it wasn't out like with the Hagar Van Halen thing. You know, it was more subtle and more professional. Even with Ozzy whacked out of his gourd, it wasn't, something that was really bashing each other in the press. And then you got 1984 and they all get together for Live Aid. And you wonder what's going to happen there. And then they just, Ozzy
went their own ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's another amazing thing about Ozzy. Now that he just passed away, I can't think of another band member he was kicked out of the band. Then his solo career eclipsed his original band. I can't think of another guy that did that.
Absolutely.
Honestly. Yeah.
Look at 84. After 84, and they went their own ways, Ozzy's career went on a trajectory, whereas Iommi went downhill because the next album he did that.
Born Again.
Born Again came out in 83. But 84, I think the next album he did was the seventh
correct
Sign.
Yeah.
With Glenn Hughes. And that was an absolute disaster. And Glenn only lasted 7 gigs and it was just in the cocaine abyss. They brought in Ray Gillen and that only lasted for a short term. And
then Geezer at that point joins Ozzy's band. So then you're at what's more Black Sabbath now. Ozzy's actually more Black Sabbath than Iommi's Black Sabbath.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then Iommi was in the Tony Martin years. And, I mean, great albums, but they weren't a draw card. They were playing clubs in the US. I mean, from a big stadium type band into clubs, that's certainly a downfall. But we know how it turns out. And I think that grunge came and there was a sort of reevaluation of Sabbath and Sabbath reunited with the Awesome Foursome. And so
I remember
they became the powerhouse.
Yeah. So I remember like a year or two before the reunion happened, reading about Sharon suing Tony for a portion of the Black Sabbath name. And once they worked that out, then they formulated the comeback. And that reunion tour and album that just blew me away. Because I never saw them back in the day with, Oz, the original band, but I saw them in that reunion tour. And I thought the whole band, Ozzy just looked at 2 teleprompters, basically with all the lyrics. We were right up against the stage. But seeing Tony Iommi and Geezer and the whole original band and Bill Ward, it was just great. Yeah.
I'm going to throw something No, so we're near the end of our show, folks, but I'm going to throw something that's going to really create some stress for Joe. Heaven and Hell, Mob Rules versus, I think you know where I'm going with this, the first two Ozzy solo albums. What would you pick?
Man, I can't. That's like choosing who my favorite son is. I can't do it. You know, because I love them equally.
Yeah.
I love Heaven and Hell. I love Mob Rules, but man, when that first Ozzy album came out, I was like, what am I listening to? This is incredible. And then he came out with the EP with You Said It All on it, and which came out with the anniversary. And then Diary comes out. And in some aspects, it's even better. I mean, that solo that Randy does on Over the Mountain, I was like, holy cow, you know. So I can't do it. I can't do it. I love it all. Yeah. And I will say that I do like Mob Rules slightly better than Heaven and Hell. I think the drumming from Vinny Appice is more powerful. And songs like Sign of the Southern Cross and Mob Rules, of course. Even that, what is that, E5150, that is such a cool lead into Mob Rules. So, yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Oh, well, I got a sort of answer there, but we might do this on another show. Have a deep breath, have a bit of a think about it. We might do this on another show.
We'd have to go track by track and then to really whittle it down. Yeah.
Okay, folks, that's you heard it here first on Rock Daydream Nation. As a future show, we're going to do that, and maybe we'll work it out. It might be like decimal points between each. Hey, before I wrap it up, I just want to show you this album I got. This is a Japan only, and I don't know if I picked this up from a store. Never seen this before. It's called The Other Side of Ozzy Osbourne. Have you ever seen this? And it's got a mixture of live tracks and B-sides. So on side one, it's got Mr. Crowley, I Don't Know, Suicide Solution, which is the J.K. Lee era. And then it's got You, Looking at Me, Looking at You, You Said It All, which is the Bob Daisley, Lee Kerslake, Randy Rhoads.
Right.
So, and then you've got Bark at the Moon and all the rest, which is J.K. Lee. Have you ever seen this album? It's only a Japan only.
I have not.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I was playing it last night. So
that's great.
Other Side of Ozzy. Yeah. And notice the photo is the same era as
Speak the Devil. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there you go. All right, Joe B., wonderful to have you on the show talking Ozzy.
Always a pleasure.
Something to look forward to. I'll give you plenty of notice about this Ozzy versus Dio show in the future.
Sweet.
Please check all the other shows that we've done on Ozzy and Dio on Rock Daydream Nation. Please tell us.
And everybody out there, I just want to say, Peter, you do just such a great job. Your topics, your interviews. Kudos to you, my man.
You're very kind, mate. You're very kind, and you're
on another level musically as far as the YouTube channel. And I saw you start from the beginning, so I give you all the praise in the world. And people like, subscribe, do everything. Follow Peter. Maybe we can even get him a Patreon page. Make him some more money because he deserves it. But no, Peter's the best, man. And you get bands coming to Australia, and you get them. You interview them. You get classic rock guys like McCoy from Gillan and Bob Daisley, and it's all good. And you just had Sherry Curry on. It's just a great channel. So having me on is just it's an honor.
No, absolutely, and you're one of my favorite guests. You were here from the start. I met you on the Contrarians, and I'm glad I took you across. And he's one of the regular bros on the show. So plenty more shows that we're going to do, Joe B. So please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. Tell us, is it Ozzy or is it Sabbath with Dio? We'd like to read your comments. One thing's for sure, me and Joe will do more shows in 2025 and beyond. Cheers and all the best. See ya. Bye.
All right.